Hey, poker peeps, this is Sky with Smart Poker Study. So on the screen in front of you is PokerTracker 4 and one special function called the Holdem Hand Range Visualizer. You can find this on the Statistics tab under the report, Holdem Hand Range Visualizer. This is one of my favorite aspects of PokerTracker 4, and it is so useful for my own studies as well as taking a look at my students' databases. So the other day I was reviewing a hand and I came across this player, Jobless Now 2. Let's just call him Job from this point forward. So I have 2,000 hands on Job, and as you can see, negative $300 in winnings, lots of 10 and 25 NL, negative 76 big blinds per 100 hands. Let's just say that Job contacted me and wanted help coaching, and they sent me their database of 2,000 hands. Job is not a student, but let's just assume so for this video here. So as soon as I get my students' hands, I'm going to start going through and just looking at statistics, looking at win rates to see if I can get an idea of where their leaks are at. Now, as soon as I see this player with such negative win rates and losses, VPIP is at 66%. PFR, preflop raise, is only 2%. That means this player just loves putting money into the pot passively as a caller as opposed to raising preflop. Now, let me show you something in Flopzilla. Now, we're just going to take a look at totals. If you see over here, calling two bets, I mean, some of these percentages are way higher than just 66%. So if they had a 66% range, if this was all the hands that they played, and they raise 1.6%, so let's say they 3-bet with just some of the best hands here. These are all the hands that this player is calling pre-flop. And now you can see why they have such negative win rates and such big losses. It's because when they call with hands like 9-3 suited, 4-3 suited, King-4 offsuit, their hand is way below their opponent's open raising range, or 3-betting range, of course, as well. And so because they're calling with such weak hands outside of their opponent's ranges, well, they're just giving their opponents a mathematical advantage. They're calling with these hands just in hopes of striking it rich, hitting trips, hitting two-pair, hitting a flush on the flop, that kind of thing, right? Hopeful poker is not profitable poker, as you can see by Job's statistics here. So when I see something like this and I realize that they're calling way too often, the first thing I do is I will pull up the Holdem Hand Range Visualizer. Now this shows you exactly what hands they're making these various plays with. When it comes to VPIP, Job so far in my database, 2,000 hands of Jobs, VPIPing all of these hands. The darker a color, the more times that they VPIPed with it. The lighter ones like 10 deuce suited, looks like just one time. Now, what I often do is I'll take a look at what I think the problem area is. And for Job, I think he's calling way too often pre-flop. Now, as you can see, the calling pre-flop 2-bet stat is not here. So we're going to have to add it in. So hit the wrench up top and then type in a few keywords from the statistic. Call pre-flop 2-bet, double click it, and it pops up at the bottom of the list. Once we hit OK, bam, there it is. It's still on VPIP. Let's refresh this. Okay, so they are calling with all of these hands 66% of the time. They're calling. Let's take a look at a few of these specifically. Oh, Jack-4 offsuit, perfect. They lost $6 at a 25 NL, so they lost 24 big blinds with Jack-4 offsuit. Actually, before we review this hand, if I just told you, if this was my own database and I said, hey, Sam, I'm calling pre-flop with Jack-4 offsuit, King-4 offsuit, 3 deuce suited, 7 deuce offsuit, Queen-7 offsuit, what would you say? Would you say, hey, those sound like really good calls pre-flop? No, not really. All those hands I just mentioned, like I said, are way outside and below my opponent's ranges. So I'm giving them a mathematical advantage by making these calls. But let's take a look at this Jack-4 offsuit. What happened to get him to call and then to lose 24 big blinds? So I open raise. You can see that's me, Wacky Juan. Jobless Now called. Flopping that top pair, loving it right there. Remember, he has Jack-4 offsuit, so he flopped a top pair. Super weak kicker. We're out kicking him right now. He checks. We value bet 4 big blinds. Well, great. We get a call, earning some value from him. Another 3 hits, not a scare card. He checks. We bet big again, 9 big blinds, going for some value. Get a call. Good. Now the 5 hits, we're not scared of anything. I mean, ace-4 maybe hit a straight. Pocket 6 is slow playing. There's some stuff. He bets 8 big blinds. Now, when potential draws complete, all of a sudden somebody leads out. Yeah, it's very small. It's a blocking bet. But really, in this instance, from my perspective, I've already got 2 streets of value. If I call right here, there's no reason to fold, and I don't think there's a really great reason to raise. So I just called. and he ended up calling, or he ended up showing down a top pair worst kicker. Lovely result for us. We took down 45 big blinds. He lost 24 in this hand. Let's take a look at another one. King 4 offsuit. $6.10. Wow, another 24 big blind loss. You could see I was dealt queen deuce. I fold versus his limp, and you get a raise. So he open limped and raised with king 4 offsuit. Flopping that top pair weak kicker once again. Calling a value bet. Now turning an open-ender and just calling full pot, right? Open-ended is 8 outs total. You could say 3 more outs for a king and potentially 3 more outs for another 4. That's 6, 8, 14 outs total. Only it's 24% of the time. To make this call, he needs 32% equity, a mathematically losing call to make right here. The jack hits doesn't help. They both check, and king 10 has a better kicker than the king 4, and he loses that big pot. So you can see right here, the thing about the Holdem Hand Range Visualizer, it's the unvarnished truth. Like, Job cannot hide from the fact that he calls preflop with queen 6, queen deuce, king 4, jack 4, 5-4 off, 8-4 offsuit. He can't hide from it because it's right here in front of you. PokerTracker 4 doesn't lie. All it does is record the hands that you've played. So this is a really good eye-opener. You can review questionable hands to see where your mistakes lie. So if I were Job, I would tell him right now, over the next week, your job is to review each and every single one of these hands, figure out what your mistake was and what you could have done better. Hopefully he'll learn not to be calling with such weak hands to give his opponents that mathematical advantage. Now, before we get into one last hand history, looking at or reviewing one last hand, if you enjoyed this video, if you learned something from it, if you learned a new way that you can do your studies and apply strategies to your game, please like the video down below and subscribe to the channel so you get more just like this. The last hand I want to look at is 3 deuce suited. This is an important one because this highlights a really big danger that these loose passive players suffer from, or that they put themselves in harm's way. So he limps in. As we know, it was 3 deuce suited. I have ace jack suited. I raise, I ISO raise, and he calls right there, 3 deuce suited. Of course, he's hoping for that flush draw. He's hoping for a flush, hoping for a straight. Oh, and he flops his flush draw on a paired board. He doesn't know that we flopped our full house, right? But if you think about what's going on right here, he checks. We make a tiny bet. It's a hard to hit board, right? I'm trying to get a little bit of money out of him here. I don't want him to fold. And then he calls. Now, when you are drawing to a 3 high flush, this is the worst possible flush to draw to. On a paired board, you're just setting yourself up for heartache when you draw to those subpar draws. He hits his draw. Good for him, right? He has a straight flush redraw right here. So he crams in 29 big blinds the rest of his stack. Of course, we have the nut, so there's no way we're folding at this point, right? So we have him beat, and that is one of the dangers of playing such weak and inferior hands. Sometimes when you hit your draw, you're still a dead duck to your opponent's stronger range, and depending on what they flop. I could have easily had king 10 of spades right here, played it the exact same way, and then turned a higher flush than Job. Alrighty, if you enjoyed this video once again, please subscribe and like the video down below, and I'll catch you in the next one.